This is Gilbert Andrew Garcia. Listen to my radio show, A Tip from Gilbert. Talk, inspiration, and prayer every Monday from 11 a.m. till noon on Houston's gospel leader, KWWJ. 1360 AM and streaming live on kwwj.org. Listen on the legendary KYOK 1140 AM and streaming live on kyokradio.org. KCOH 1230 AM, The Source. On San Geek Radio 95.1 FM 1460 AM. And Aliento Radio 101.7 FM and 1540 AM. Call in at 832-570-8075 and follow me on social media. See you then. All right, Houston. This is Gilbert Andrew Garcia of A Tip from Gilbert. Talk, inspiration, and prayer with another episode of A Tip from Gilbert. Go ahead and play a little bit of that through there, Mr. Producer. I want to again welcome our listeners to KWWJ. Keep walking with Jesus. I want to thank, of course, KYOK, the legendary KYOK, KCOH, the Source, and then, of course, Aliento Radio and San Geek Radio. And don't forget, I know, thank you, studio audience. I know we have a holiday today, but you can call in at 832-570-8075. We have a very special guest because I will tell you, we've been in the news, the firefighters. And you know what? I see somehow, I don't know the right phrase, a parting of the clouds. Like finally some rational thought or something coming into play here. Not that the firefighters have been irrational, because they've been rational for day one. We have Marty Lancton, the head of the union here. Marty, say hello to Houston.
Hello, Houston. How are you?
Now, Marty has been on our show many times, and excuse me, the great thing about Marty Lancton is he will just tell it like it is. You don't have to worry. You don't have to wonder. Excuse me. You don't have to read between the lines. The great thing about Marty Lancton, he's going to tell you. And if he's got an issue with you, he's going to come honestly and straight on. Instead of one of these backbiting and he says something and then later he switches and flip-flops. And that's what I really admire you as a leader. And I think that's probably why the membership so admires you, because you're just, you're first class. So I want to say that to you personally.
That means a lot. I tell people all the time, the right thing is supposed to matter. I don't think, Jesus, I don't think anybody that has taught us to live a life of service says to do anything other than to tell the truth and to work with people. But the truth is the truth. And I do believe the right thing always matters in the end. It's what are you willing to do to get to the end?
Amen. Let's do it. Let's go ahead and cut off the music. Let's give me a little bit more volume there, Mr. Producer. And we will play the legendary Clark Sisters at the end on Victory, the song Victory. But so, Marty, before we go into some of the issues that I want to talk about, because the firefighters, I don't want to say the firefighters, but firefighter issues are in the news.
Yes.
And it's not the firefighters. In many ways, it seems like the firefighters have been I don't want to say collateral damage, but somehow y'all just done nothing but the right thing, but yet there's been all this angst and wasted money and litigation and more litigation. And y'all just been sitting there saying, let's work this out.
Yep.
From the beginning.
Yep.
I remember you were on the show saying, Mayor Turner, why don't we just get together and work this out? Remember you did that?
I've done that.
Yeah.
And continue.
Yeah. Well, before we go there, just remind me, so where are you from again, Marty?
I'm born and raised in Houston, Texas.
Were you really?
Yep.
Where'd you go? Look at that. Where'd you go to high school?
Straight Jesuit.
Straight Jesuit. Oh, my God. I did not wear this red shirt
if you notice,
to get his attention.
He did that on purpose.
No,
He's got a St. Thomas Eagle shirt on, and the Jebby-Eagle rivalry still exists.
It does.
But you know what? We love you, and we're brothers.
I appreciate that. I wore this red shirt because I was trying to find something very firefighter because of the gala that you have, the red, all the red in the gala. So I thought, this will be great. He won't know this means St. Thomas. Boy, what was I wrong? But let's go. So you were from Houston. When did you join the fire department? How old were you?
You know, I first joined the fire department in 2000. Started up north near Austin. I went to the A&M Fire Academy, went through their program, went through the EMS certification, and got my first job up near Austin.
No kidding.
You know, one of the things back then was there was such a long line of people to get into Houston that the notion was always go to wherever you can get a job first. And then my goal was always to come back to work to the greatest fire department in the world, which is the Houston Fire Department. And so I started my career up there and then did exactly what I said. And I came back.
How wonderful. Let me ask you this. How hard is the academy? I mean, do you look back and say, boy, because when you're sort of like my age, because I'm older than you are, you always look back and say, God, these young kids, they're so much smarter than I was. Do you look back and say, golly, these young cadets, boy, they are just so with better condition than I was? I mean, what do you look back on?
I went through the academy twice. So once when I was first coming out at the A&M fire school, and it was grueling. It tests your mental capabilities, not just your physical. One of the things we talk about in the firefighting world is you never go 100% going into a fire to go get somebody out or to go put a fire out. And people look at me and they say, but Marty, you always do things 100%. Yeah. I said, no, you go 80%. And they said, why is that? I said, because if things go wrong, you need 20% of your energy to get out.
Very interesting.
And so it's not about, bench pressing one thing one time.
Yep.
Firefighting is mental. It is, of course, physical, but it is a lot in respects mental. And so I've actually gone through it twice. And then when I came to Houston, went through the Houston Fire Department Fast Track Academy. And, I'll tell you, when you get into the groove and the rhythm of testing the limits on your body, getting your body conditioned, it's a good thing. So like it with anything, if somebody took a lot of time off from the financial markets,
right,
and they came back into it, they need that time to start of relearn, what it is that they're doing. And it's no different in firefighting,
Yep.
But it is extremely physically demanding, but it is also mentally demanding as well.
Now, I have been in many fire stations. I don't know if I've ever told you that. Here in Houston, I've ridden on trucks in LA, and the one thing about the fire department, in my view, is the fact that you're 24/7 for so many days, and then you're off, and then you're 24/7. It really brings this closeness. And I can't think of anything else but maybe the Marines during wartime. You really need people in that foxhole you could trust.
Yeah.
I mean, am I right? I mean, that's what it seems like to me.
The greatest part about firefighting is in my 23-year plus career, it does not matter where you're from, doesn't matter what race, religion, sex you are, doesn't matter what you believe in. When the alarm goes off, I can tell you that the Houston Fire Department is one of the most diverse fire departments. We have the most diverse union board and membership nationally. And one of the things that I tell people is when the alarm goes off, we respond to everybody the same. And the partner to your left and right is your lifeline. And so we're family. And we respond to the citizens on their worst day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We never stop. And so when you're at work, you have to rely on your brothers and sisters to your left and to your right.
Yep.
Because if something goes wrong, you hope they got that 20% energy to get you out. And you're going to do that for them. And I've never met a stronger, more courageous group of firefighters than Houston firefighters, period.
Amen. It really is an extraordinary thing. And I think the closeness that it just develops is part of the reason for the success of the firefighter department, because they've got to be close. They've got to rely on each other. They've got to have this incredible trust. It's almost like, although not nearly the same, because you're talking about life and death, but on a football field, when somebody's got an assignment, they hope that their teammate will complete their assignment. But if he cannot, they're there to help.
Right.
You're a team. In other words, you may take on your blocker, but if your teammate is having a hard time with their block, you go help them with the block, right? Because it's a team. What an incredible thing. Well, let me ask you this. From when you first came into now, how has the fire department evolved? I mean, ignoring the hubbub today.
Sure.
Has it grown? Do we have more stations? I mean, give me some stats there.
Well, a few different areas. No, we have not increased the number of assets and resources within the Houston Fire Department in well over a decade, and I'd say 2 decades now.
Is that right?
Let me put this in perspective. And I know that I always tell people, if you ever want to put people to sleep, tell numbers. But I think these numbers are impactful and they mean something. In 2010, we had approximately 4,100 firefighters, give or take, about, people retired.
Yep.
Come on. We were running about 225,000 calls, which is enormous. We're the busiest department in the state of Texas.
225,000 calls?
Yeah, for service.
A year?
A year.
So if you divide that, that's like 20,000 calls a month.
Yeah. And this is from a city that's 650 square miles. We're the 3rd largest municipal fire department in the nation. And in 2022, we've lost 400 firefighters. We have about 3,650.
So we're 10% down.
And we're running nearly double what the incident load was and the work demand was than in 2010. We're a demand service that lives to serve the public. And the men and women take an oath, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get to them. But this fire department has been critically understaffed and under-resourced. And I would say that if you go talk to anybody in any community, because we respond to every community, we love our Houstonians, we love the people that we serve. We send the same response to you, no matter where you are. And what matters to us as firefighters the most is that we can get to you with the right resources in the right amount of time. But you can't do that, Gilbert, if you're running exponentially more calls with less firefighters than you had in 2010. It's unsustainable.
Yeah, you don't even have to be a mathematician to figure that one out.
It's unsustainable.
It is unsustainable. Well, let me ask you this. One thing I've noticed is when you look at I'm going to turn to my picture here. When you look at the fire department, there are fire stations throughout the city. And I guess that's part of the reason that enables you to go quickly to a fire. I know I don't want to say anything about the police department, but the police department doesn't work that way with lots of stations out and about, right?
Yeah.
And why, it seems to me y'all have learned the best way to respond is to have things out in the community. Well, am I missing something?
You have to be in the community. You have to be there. You have to be there on people's worst. We don't wish the worst day on people. We want to have a relationship with the community. That's why we have a great relationship with the community. But what I will say is it's not just fires, Gilbert. You asked about the historical aspect of the fire department. And let me put this in perspective. In the 60s and 70s, a lot of it was just fire. Then they came into EMS and paramedicine. Paramedics, our Houston firefighter paramedics, do in essence the same life-saving skills that doctors do in the emergency room when you're in cardiac arrest. We start IVs, we give medications, we treat heart attacks, we treat strokes. Now, we're doing that in the field, not in the atmosphere that we have all of these lights in a controlled environment. We're in an uncontrolled environment. So then you added in EMS as part of the fire department, which is exactly where it should be. Then you started to have issues with hazardous materials becoming an issue. So we had to become the department that is qualified, certified, and able to respond to those. Then you had 9/11. Then we had weapons of mass destruction. That falls on the fire department to respond, because if something happens within the communities, it's the fire department. So we've gotten to a point where all of the skill sets of the firefighters in Houston have to be so broad. We have to be proficient in so many things. We have to be certified in so many things. And that's a good thing. The citizens should want that. But at the end of the day, we can't treat the men and women that are putting their lives on the line every day as second-class citizens.
That's right.
We have to take care of them.
And we cannot mathematically make their job almost impossible to do.
One of the best quotes, and I'll send it to you so you can look at it, was
Please.
Mayor Eric Garcetti when he took over LA. What LA Fire Department went through about 10 years ago is exactly what the Houston Fire Department's going through. And he came and spoke to our International Association of Firefighters that represents 330,000 professional firefighters from the U.S. and Canada. And he came to D.C. to meet with all of the leaders. And it was powerful to me, and I continue to listen to this. And he said, you can't, when he took over as mayor, L.A. had not done right by its firefighters. While the recession hit, they had started to build back up the police department, but they didn't build up the fire department. The same has happened here in Houston. And his words beyond that were that you can't very well and in good faith make demands while making it harder for firefighters to do their jobs.
Yeah.
You have to invest within the people that are willing to put their lives on the line. And I'll tell you, being down, we've never seen the amount of firefighters ever leave the Houston Fire Department to go to other departments. We've never seen that in the history, let alone see this department down 400 firefighters. The numbers are staggering. The men and women, their morale is at an all-time low. They have not been paid what the voters have authorized. They have done everything the right way. And to your earlier point, we don't expect anything different, and we don't expect special treatment. What we expect is fair. And if you're not willing to do that, firefighters are going to stand up every single time because we're a team and we believe in doing what's right.
Amen. I want to hold on to that thought. We have a call already. Do we have an Yvette there? Is that Yvette?
Hi, Marty. Hi, Gilbert.
Hey, how are you, Yvette?
I'm good. I'm so happy to hear you're on the show today, Marty. It means so much to be representing the firefighter community and the community in general. We need you out there. We need to hear from you. We need someone to speak and have a voice out there for us.
Thank you.
Well, Yvette, your husband's a firefighter, right?
Yes, I know Marty and him used to work back at the station together.
I learned all the good things that I ever learned from her husband.
From her husband.
From Albert. So Albert, if you're listening, just remember all the bad things I also learned from Albert. So
yeah. Well, Yvette, let me ask you this. What's it like being the spouse of a firefighter or do they say a firefighter can be a man or woman? What's it like being the spouse of a firefighter? Because you sacrifice too, right? Because when they're there on the station, is it 3 days on, 3 days off, or explain to me again?
Yeah, it's 24 on, 24 off, 24 on in 5 days. And then, they can go in for an extra shift depending on the schedule. But, as a spouse, at the beginning, it was new to me, to be introduced to the day-to-day life of it. And it was a little different, but then I grew onto it. I accustomed myself to it. And until the fire that happened in, was it 2013, that got me. That's when I started having a little bit more of awareness of like what was happening out there, the danger, the experience, because my husband could have been on that shift that day. He was which shift was it, Marty? The C shift or the?
Yeah, I was on the D shift. I had just gotten off shift.
Remind me of what happened. I don't recall.
What Yvette is referring to is the darkest day, I would say, and has been quoted in Houston Fire Department history. It was the Southwest End fire. We lost 5 total firefighters were killed in the line of duty. Captain Iron Bill Dowling was the 5th, and he succumbed to his injuries. He had brain damage and was in a wheelchair for years afterwards, and ultimately passed away. We had, I believe it was 12 had to be medically retired. They could no longer go on. The point that I want to ask, Yvette, is, as a spouse, when you experience that, the danger that we don't know exists during the day that we haven't had yet, meaning right. You don't know what calls you're going to go on.
Right.
And you don't know when the last time you're going to kiss your loved one goodbye. But I guess to Yvette, when you saw the pain and the anguish and the things that we're going through, did it also show you give a glimpse into what the brotherhood of what it is that we're going to be there for each other for? Did you get to experience?
Yes, 100%. My husband wasn't on shift that day, but he went to the scene immediately to see what he could do to help, what he could do just to provide any support, because it was horrible. I was in an office building at the time, and I could see the fire from the window, and it was just insane to be like, wow, this is just not, it was just not a good day, obviously for everyone in the community of Houston, the firefighters, but afterwards, everyone coming together to support the families that were involved, really meant so much, just to see the love and, and everyone just being together at that time, because it was horrible. So after that, it changed my, at least my day to day of it, because you just kind of, you just assume things will be okay, but it's not, So all in all, everyone sticks together as a family, and we're all here for each other in the firefighter, the brotherhood that you mentioned. We're all together in it. So
what's the leading cause of the fatalities? Is it burn, or is it like smoke inhalation and suffocation
in a fire
in a terrible event?
It's
everything. I suppose
it's everything, but without getting too detailed on it, I mean, our bunker gear can take up so much heat, and it is hot. Let me just tell you, on a normal fire, it's hot. But what the men and women do, remember, we're in Houston, so you're already sweating and you have this heat on. When you're dealing with fire and flames, you're dealing with the fact that you can't see anything. Smoke. Imagine going in your own house, turning off all the lights, blindfolding yourself, and tell yourself to get out. Even if you know the space, it's very difficult. You add in heat and you add in all these other factors, it becomes very, very stressful. Is a light term, but our gear is rated to protect us from the heat. And once that gear fails, and once we either run out of air, you're talking about smoke inhalation, or you're talking about burns, and you're talking about very serious things that happen to the men and women. And again, nobody expects to have an emergency. That's what we're here for, to respond to. And no firefighter leaves their family. Yeah. No firefighter leaves their husband or their wife in the morning and say to themselves, I don't want to come home to you, and I don't want to come home to our babies. Mm-hmm. It is something that we all go through, and it's difficult to explain unless you've been through it. But a vet has been able to experience what it means in times of tragedy. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we always say to the families, and I do, is regardless of what's going on in the political realm, whether somebody is or isn't taking care of our men and women, that we will never forget what they do, and we will do everything to take care of their family. And it's not just lip service. It's not just when the lights are on. Right. It's when everybody has paid their respects, and the life that these widows have to go through in their families without their loved one. Why? Because they answered the call to Houstonians to respond to them, and they deserve the respect and the sanctity of the service that they provide.
Amen. Most people, when there's a crisis, they run away.
Yep.
But firefighters run to the crisis. I mean, imagine the mentality of that. I mean, what an incredible love for humanity and service. Talk about the ultimate of public service. Well, let me ask you something and then I want to get into some of the issues. Yvette, thank you for calling in. I really appreciate it.
One thing I'd like to mention real quick, just speaking of the firefighter community, is the recent firefighter, Donovan Pieg, and I know he just experienced, we just experienced almost could have been a horrible event, but he survived, falling through the roof recently of a fire. And any support that could come in and help him, just from to help his family, to provide any fund support, because that just recently happened here, but probably when, Marty, like about a week ago?
Yep, February 4th, a Saturday, and she's referring it to, didn't mean to cut you off, I'm sorry, Yvette. She's talking about Donovan Apiag, who was a 2-year veteran. He's a Navy veteran, and he's a 2-year Houston firefighter. His wife is in the reserves, and they have a 1-year-old son, and he was called to a fire on a Saturday, and while he was up doing the task and the job that he swore an oath to do, he fell through the roof, and they have video of it. Somebody captured some video, and the crews pulled him from the roof, from the fires, and pulled him out. And he had 2nd and 3rd degree burns. He's still in the hospital. And from that moment, we make sure that we have somebody there at the hospital dealing with the family to make sure that they're taken care of. And I've spoken with Donovan many times. In fact, he just messaged yesterday to reiterate how thankful and grateful he is for the love and support from Houstonians. We have a 501c3 charitable nonprofit organization that, Gilbert, you have been there from the beginning. It was never existed. Something like this never existed before. And you have been instrumental in helping the men and women throughout the years. And it is a website, houstonsbravest.org. And you can go to that website and you'll see a photo of Donovan that you can go and donate. And any donations go directly to support and help him and his family. Whatever they need, the last thing they need to be worried about is any financial issues. And he's in pain, but he didn't let the pain overshadow the fact that he wanted the Houstonians. He wanted his native island of Guam, everybody there to know that is what has kept him going. And he's had multiple procedures. He still has multiple more. And the courage that this firefighter shows is awe-inspiring to me.
That's amazing. Well, you know what? Later, would you give me the information? My firm is happy to give $1,000 to that 501c3.
That's very good. Thank you very
Please,
much.
I want to do it. My goodness. Well, let me ask you this. Yvette, thank you for calling in and for being part of
It
the
was
show.
good to hear your voice. Tell Albert I said hi.
I know we have another caller there, but before we do, just give us some tips. I'm going to say some things that probably make no sense, but I just want to clarify it. If there's a fire, what should people do when you're in a home and it's your home, in addition to, of course, call the fire department? Should you, someone told me you get on your knees because the smoke rises and there's more oxygen below. Is that just myth? No. What are some of the little tips you can share?
There's a few things. Number one, without getting too far into the weeds, I want to say this. Houston is very large, 650 plus square miles. We're not zoned. We see a lot of businesses next to residential. That's the way that Houston was planned.
Right.
I don't think very well, but that's the way that it was planned. And so one of the things that is critical we've seen over the years is smoke detectors save lives. Number one, we've heard it. We've been to school. We've heard the messaging. It is so critically important to make sure that you have a smoke detector. If you don't have one and you can't afford one, you can call the Houston Fire Department. We'll give one and install one for you.
Oh, how great.
The second part is that you always have to have an escape plan. So wherever you're living with your family, always take time out of your day, even if it's just for a couple minutes, to work on your escape plan, to know this is where we're going to go in case this happens. Because I promise you, in the event of an emergency, it will be muscle memory as opposed to something that is chaotic and you don't know what to do. So you always want to get low. Getting lower is where the cooler air is. Heat rises. You can see more on the floor and it's cooler. That's why you see firefighters crawling, because even though we're wearing our special protective suits, it is still very hot. And so the lower we get, the cooler it is. And you always want to make sure that get the family out safe. Don't worry about the things. The things can be replaced. You can't. In fact, over the Christmas holidays, we lost too many to fatalities in fires. We also rescued a lot from fires. Fires in Houston are not down. They're up.
Wow. The
notion seems to be and has been that because we've incorporated different aspects into the fire department, the EMS, the hazmat, the demand for what we're here for, we're sort of an insurance policy, if you will, that you never want to cash. But when it's your time or your loved one, if God forbid something ever happens to them, the sweetest sound you will ever hear are the sirens coming.
Amen to that. I have been blessed in that I haven't really had emergencies, in my life, but I can only imagine, or maybe I can't imagine, but I can only imagine. Well, so let's just go through that again, Houston. Number one, get smoke detectors. If you don't have one, the fire department will get you one. Number two, go low.
Yep.
Right? Go low. Number three, have your escape plan.
That's right.
I know I don't have my order right, but have your escape plan. Even if you just say, if I'm in the kitchen and a fire's there at the stove, I need to go out the back door or the front door. Just know something that simple. So when it happens, it's like training. It's automatic. So you don't panic. I guess another one is just don't panic.
It's easy to say don't panic, and I can tell you, people always ask me, the biggest thing they ask is, do you ever get scared? And my answer is yes. I'm scared all the time. The difference being is that you have to take calculated risks in order. What we say is you risk a lot to save a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do is you put yourself in the best position. But anybody that says that they're fearless, you don't want as your partner as a firefighter. You want people to recognize the signs around you, because there's things that we know and we see that the general public doesn't. But as parents, if you have kids or if you have a loved one, the biggest thing you can do for them is to talk about it. Even having this conversation right here maybe makes one person think to themselves, okay, just to have that talk, because if you don't, this is what potentially could happen. You and I have a conversation that says something happens, we're going to meet out in the hallway. We're going to keep saying that all the time. We're going to keep saying that. If we don't have that conversation and you go into this hallway and I go out to the stairwell, you don't know if I'm still inside.
And then all it takes are seconds.
Seconds.
Seconds between, I guess, life and death. I mean, it's really that dramatic.
When we say seconds matter in our line of work, it's not political rhetoric or hyperbole. It is literally seconds that make the difference of whether or not we can save you, whether that's a heart attack, whether that's a stroke, whether that's a fire. Fires grow exponentially. They don't grow linearly. They don't grow like the old days of, I mean, you probably be much better at algebra than I would be. But, it's not the X squared. It's not the doubling. It's the exponential. What we've seen over the last 30 years with the invention of plastics and the invention of lightweight materials, and without boring your audience to death, this is what I'm going to say. They can build a house faster and cheaper now. The problem, though, is a lot of times what they're using in truss construction. If you see these prefab plates that they put up, they're putting up these houses in no time flat. They're the ability for it to be structurally sound is fine unless and until there is fire impinging on it. Then it fails at an exponentially larger rate.
Wow.
And so it is something that, again, we hope you never need the fire department, but all you ever need to do is need us one time.
That's right.
For you to understand. And we hope nobody ever has to deal with it.
Hold on to that thought, because we have 2 callers already. Is there a Linda on the line?
Yes, there's a Linda on the line.
Miss Linda, this is Gilbert Garcia of A Tip from Gilbert, Talk, Inspiration, and Prayer with Mr. Marty Lancton of the Houston Firefighters.
Hi, Linda.
Yes. How you doing, Marty? And Marty, I'm going to start with the first thing. Of course, I have always had great eyes for the fire department from elementary school when I had my handkerchief pinned on my collar and they would come and they would explain to us. And of course, as a teacher, when we had to have regular fire drills and the fire department would come out and have assemblies to the kids. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. But what I couldn't understand was how the union only seemed to have spats, these public spats, and excoriate our mayors, Mayor Lee Brown and Mayor Turner. And they skipped over Anise Parker, Whitmire. They sure knew better than to tangle with, I'm about to call his name, Lanier. They knew better than to tangle with him, but they only come out. And then when we had our fire this Saturday, we didn't have a fire. A neighbor in our subdivision, his car, these ignitions, his car starts a fire in the garage, and just about half his house burned down. And that just made us so reminiscent of when the fire department would come to our neighborhoods, our kind of neighborhoods, and they never had the equipment, they never had anything, but they watched houses burn. And it took an awful long time. I went home. I got calls because I'm the block captain. Everyone had called and called and called, and the fire department did not get there expeditiously. Another thing is to compare you to the police department. When a police department, I know this from CPS when I worked at CPS, before a police officer can leave the area, if there are children there, he must make sure that there is a criminal background check. All of these things have elevated because society has changed. Mm-hmm. There's got to be a criminal background check if the parents are being arrested, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I also know because I have students that are police officers. One guy who, one of them, the 3 fellas, they were shot and one died. It's just not the same job as police officers. It just isn't. That's like saying that a teacher has the same job as a principal. Okay? And those are my issues. Wow. Number one, you never seem to want to get public with it until you have a mayor like Turner or Lee Brown.
Well, first of all,
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And the next thing is that your job is not concomitant to police officers. Police officers just got stabbed in the cheek. Every week you have a police officer being harmed and then taken off the job. It's nowhere near the same job. You don't have to clear an area. You don't have to secure students, the children. You do it if you want to, but you're not responsible. It's not part of your job. Your job is to put out the fire. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, Linda, thank you for your. I think the question is, they're both not the question. They're both dangerous jobs, right? They're just both dangerous jobs, and they're both public servants, and they're both first responders, and they both leave, and it could be their last day, right? They both leave and go to work. Where else do you go to work, and it could be your last day?
Right.
And I think there are so many similarities, but I hear the concept of they're different, and they are different. But it's kind of like saying there are certain football players that catch the ball and score touchdowns, and there are some that throw the ball, and then there's some that run with the ball. But at the end of the day, they're all dangerous.
Yeah, and I actually appreciate and I want to thank you for calling in. I am absolutely okay with different viewpoints, and I'm actually I love to hear people's different points of view. And my goal is never to be right. It is to try to educate and answer the questions the best way I can. So I really want to say thank you, because there's nothing that we do or that the firefighters have done that we are absolutely not okay with, and that we don't want to get the information to the public. So on the first part, I would say that, first off, I would say that I was not the president at the time, but I think that the last mayor probably didn't enjoy a whole lot of help or appreciation from the firefighters for a number of reasons because of the issues we're having. So it under the former mayor. But want to also remind people, we've been friends with this mayor, for 27 years. We were friends with him and supported him in the State House. And we were the first group to support Mayor Turner before anybody else in 2015. Nobody else except the firefighters. And not only did we do that, but the firefighters put thousands of firefighters on the street, walked for Mayor Turner, because of what it is that they believed, and he knew the issues dealing with the firefighters. So I want to be clear, and I've said this repeatedly. Firefighters always want to work with people, but we started out not only supporting, but we were the ones that were there. I was there at his campaign headquarters in 2015. I was there every Saturday, and we were there because we believed in what he was doing.
I remember that like yesterday. I would make the case, so you don't have to. I'll make the case. I believe that had it not been the firefighters' support, he wouldn't be mayor. Remember, the vote was that close.
It was separated by about 4,000 firefighters, which is how many? 4,000 votes.
Which is how many firefighters voted. Yeah, that's exactly right. I didn't mean to interrupt you, though.
No. And so I want, as with anything, I never want to take away from people's point of view, but I love and respect everybody. And the issues that the firefighters are dealing with didn't start, and I've been very clear, didn't start on this mayor. They started on the last one. And our focus, though, is we can't just shift blame. We have to fix a problem. And my focus and goal is firefighters will continue to go out there and respond to the citizens on their worst day, no matter what. It doesn't matter what somebody agrees or disagrees. But we didn't ask for any fight. What we asked for was to follow the law and to respect the rights of firefighters. I can't speak for other people, but I can tell you that if anybody, and I think she had mentioned she was a teacher, we're out here trying to support the teachers in their right to have collective bargaining, and the firefighters in Houston have collective bargaining. This mayor, first mayor in the history of the city of Houston, or to my knowledge, to the state of Texas, has ever challenged the rights of labor to have collective bargaining in Texas.
And how did that happen? I mean, collective bargaining is the very essence of labor.
Yeah.
Right?
And nobody disagrees, by the way. I mean, the Texas AFL-CIO, the National AFL-CIO, there is no organization locally, statewide, or nationally that is not supportive of our positions. So it's not about the individual, it's the positions he's taken. And the firefighters have had to spend a lot of money defending their rights in court. And we were just in the Supreme Court in November. It was this administration that pushed to overturn what the citizens of Houston have voted in in 2003.
Let's hold that thought, because I think that's very important. And I think Miss Linda, I wish she were still on, but let's go to that, because I want to go through the concept of how did we get here.
Yeah.
But I know we have two more calls. Is there a Jess on the line?
Yes, sir, Mr. Gilbert. First, I'm going to Mr. Lancton, thank you for your service and all firefighters.
Thank you.
I have two brother-in-laws that are firefighters, and I know you have a very powerful union, and you're very involved with the candidates. But my question is, do you plan to endorse a mayoral candidate early before all the candidates announced in April, or are you going to do it ahead of time like the Houston Police Department and endorse your candidate ahead of schedule? And I'll hang up and listen.
Well, thank you, Jess.
Thank you for the Jess.
That's not a setup.
Oh no, I always like
No, it's
the
not.
direct. I always do. Yeah. Listen, I'm okay with direct questions. The answer is I'm going to sound like a politician here, but we have a process, and that process is not one person. It's not me. That process is democracy within our union. Like I said, we have the most diverse union leadership we've ever had in the history, and we embrace it. And so what we will do is going to follow the process that not me, not one person. That's kind of the point of all this. We're not supposed to be instilling things. Every decision we make and what we do is elected representatives, is the membership having a say so, having a voice, but having a process. We ask for a process to be fair. I tell our team and our leadership every day, we cannot ask for fair if we are not willing to do the same. We would be hypocrites. So everything we do follows a process. That process I can't get into right now, other than to tell you that we utilize the same process every time, and we believe in being fair, being right, and being just, and we'll follow it.
But Jesse, thank you for the question. We have another question. Hold on there, Marty, and then let's get to what I want to get back to. Was there another name? I thought I saw another name there, Miss Producer. Is there a Sophia on the line? Sophia.
Sophia, are you there?
Sophia.
Hello, Sophia.
Oh no.
I may have lost you, Sophie. If I may call you Sophie.
Yeah, one more.
Sophie, you there?
A tip one.
Sophia, are you there? I think I lost you. She'll call back. So, Marty, let's go to Miss Linda's the very essence of her question, which is really, I think, what we want to talk about today. Although we're going to come to where we are as an update versus sort of how do we get. So we supported Mayor Turner, and then we got, I guess, crosswise on some of the normal give and take of labor management type issues. But how did it escalate?
Well, it didn't escalate we have the process. So let me go back and
yeah, please do.
So under state law, there are only two public entities, and we're trying to work with the teachers, because teachers and firefighters have to stick together, about having rights under what's called collective bargaining. And if you know anything about labor, anybody's been part of a union, that is the bedrock principle of labor, which is you have a seat at the table, but it's a right. It's not permissive. It's in essence, if something were to happen to you and a police officer were to arrest you, you have rights that are given or inherent. They're not given by that individual officer. They can't be taken away. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. So in labor, because we are public, because we are emergency responders, we cannot strike. And there is a process under the law that firefighters have rights for. And it says that you have to follow this. And once you get to a point that the process hits the 61st day, by law, you're at impasse, which means that you could agree. We have more than one article in our contract regarding, it's not just pay. In fact, that's one article. Health and wellness, insurance, things that affect the men and women. But when you get to that, there's a process laid out. And it says, listen, follow the process to a resolution, because you have to have a resolution.
You have to have a resolution.
And so we followed that process. And what this administration did was ask the courts to declare our rights unconstitutional. Not to say, if I think it's 10, Gilbert, you think it's 5, to allow the third party to say it's 2 or 5 or 8. we've said on record, we are okay with an independent person looking at the facts and weighing them up because it's not personal. It does affect our members' lives. I don't take things personally, but what is personal to me is how it affects the men and women who put their lives on the line every day and how it affects their families. They have to work minimum 2 and 3 jobs just to support their families.
Well,
That's not okay.
Let me interrupt for a second. So we're at an impasse.
Sure.
So the impasse, there's certain, you use the word articles, I'm going to use that word,
Sure.
certain issues, right? Articles. And the process says what? That after so many days, what happens?
After 60 days, if there is not a contract in place, by law, you're at impasse. Within 5 days, you have to notify the city that you want to go to what's called binding arbitration. And binding arbitration is what we call permissive. That portion of the law is we ask for it, the city has to agree to it. This was in 2017. If the city would have agreed to go to binding arbitration, we would have had a contract in place by three neutral arbitrators by July 1st, 2017, before our contract ever expired.
So let me ask, so right now you don't have a contract.
We don't have a contract.
So let's go back for a second, because this is very important, I think, for people to know the issues.
Mhm.
So then again, the process is there. The process said binding arbitration, and binding arbitration means the city picks someone,
Mhm.
the firefighters pick someone,
They pick a third.
and then the two pick a third.
That's right.
And then I guess y'all make like a court, you make your case,
Mm-hmm.
and the three of them say whatever they're going to say, and the city and the firefighters agree going in. Whatever they agree, we will accept.
And it's for 1 year. It's only, and so
So it's
you're-
only for 1
it's only
year?
for 1 year. And you're back at the table negotiating the next year. The law was designed to protect the men and women.
It's only for 1 year. Well, what's all the hubbub? But I don't know why I thought it was. I did not realize it was only for 1 year.
We're still at impasse in the court. So instead of following that, and what the law says is if the city refuses, meaning they don't agree to go to that third neutral panel, then the law says that they can't refuse to have a judge decide.
Okay.
So it's either 3 independent neutral arbitrators or a judge. The city said, we don't want 3 independent arbitrators, we want a judge. But instead of asking the judge to weigh up their set of facts that say, we think you should be at 10 and we think you should be at 15 and let the judge decide, the city took a position that floored everybody nationally comes to labor, the teachers, everybody. And they instead filed a motion to say that our rights are unconstitutional and we don't have and deserve to have a right to a contract, which is the very essence
And
of
how
the
can
law.
but that just, it's like, how can that be? Because they just think you can work at will without a contract at all?
That's I don't know.
I guess that's the end result.
That's the end result because let me put it this way: if the administration would have prevailed in their arguments, and we're waiting for the Supreme Court to weigh in, that's the provision that says firefighters can't strike. There has to be a mechanism. You give up the right to strike, so you have a
Right.
impasse resolution.
That's right.
So at the end of the day, what really matters is that instead of resolving the problem, people decided to throw gasoline on it. Now, our firefighters have had to defend those rights since 2017. The city has lost in district court. We sent a letter saying, let's stop, let's sit down, let's go to binding arbitration. We went to the appellate courts. The city lost. We said, stop, let's sit down, let's go to binding arbitration. They appealed again, went to the Texas Supreme Court. And then we just had hearings in the Texas Supreme Court in late November. All of this to tell you, there have been so many off-ramps that we have offered this administration repeatedly, genuine, real offers, and they have refused.
Now,
every step of the way.
going back to Miss Linda, it's never gotten to this before, right? Or has it?
Never, ever.
I mean,
in the history.
Even whatever with Mayor Brown, whatever with Mayor Parker, whatever with Mayor White, the point is, this is different.
This is 100% different. It was 100% preventable, and we're not the ones driving. We're the passengers. We're defending the rights.
Mhm.
Meaning, I couldn't if you said, Marty, I want you to stop this right now. I couldn't take down the city's lawsuit against us for anything.
Yeah.
And so it puts people in a position to where there's a perception that some would probably have that it is a personality thing. It's not. I'm a very direct and very honest individual. I don't believe in trying to paint a different picture than what the truth is. I let other people look at the objective facts
Let them weigh up what they think. But they have to be able to look at the objective facts. Otherwise, we're just politicizing something that should never be politicized.
And all I heard when I just heard you go through all this, and the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter, is like legal fees, legal fees, legal fees. Am I missing something?
No.
I mean, and
the end result is still the same as if they would have just gone to arbitration in 2017.
And the taxpayers are on both sides, really, because firefighters, you're spending your money, which is essentially taxpayer money, because we pay, you work for the city, and the city's paying their money, which is taxpayer money, because we pay for the city and all the legal department. At the end of the day, the taxpayers on both sides.
Well, listen, it's just not a way to address anything. It's not a way to work things out with people. We've had meetings with, city council members, with ex-mayors, actually. Nobody has looked at this objectively and said that what we're saying is not accurate. We're not intending, we don't need to fan any more flames to a bonfire that got lit from this administration. But at the end of the day, what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. And our members are representative of the city of Houston. We have the most diverse fire department. And my job is to represent the men and women who are willing to put their lives on the line every day. Doesn't matter who it's coming from.
And so somewhere along the line came the whole pay parity. And what's interesting about pay parity, and I'm a big believer of the will of the voters. When I was at Metro, the will of the voters.
That's a basic core tenet of our democracy.
It really is, right?
Yeah.
It really is. And I'm a big believer, whatever the voters say, we, as whoever the elected officials are, need to implement the will of the voters.
Right.
It wasn't even close.
It was, well, listen.
I mean, right? I mean,
no, it wasn't.
What was the vote again? It wasn't even close.
On a different track, I think, it's notable to say that, the citizens of Houston came together and submitted a petition. 60,000 signatures in just over 7 days set a state of Texas record.
Come on.
The threshold is 20,000. To say we want to be able to weigh in on this issue. This administration delayed the vote. We had to sue to get them to count the petitions. We won. Then they put the petitions on the ballot for a vote in 2018. And there was a massive campaign put together by this administration and millions of dollars to campaign against its own firefighters. And they lost. That's how we settle our differences at the ballot box. But that's not where it ended. 2 weeks later, the mayor hired a outside law firm to sue to overturn the vote of the people. That case was also before the Supreme Court on the same day as the other case. So at the end of the day, the point is, every step of the way, the firefighters continue to do what is right. We continue to play by the rules, and we're going to continue to respond to the citizens. But I will not tolerate, and I will not be okay with people bullying our firefighters, with people saying and dismissing the issues. Our men and women, we've lost too many in the line of duty. They go out there every single day. That question has been answered by the citizens. Overwhelmingly, it was approved. So whether you were on one side or the other, just like when you vote a new mayor, you may not have voted for that candidate who won, but they're still your mayor.
That's right.
So at the end of the day, people that want to go around the basic right of democracy, which is to petition your government, that's how we settle our differences. And this administration threw gasoline on that fire as well.
Well, let's go through this. So what's going on with the ledge now?
So now we have had a bill last session that Representative Marian Perez, who is, by the way,
Wonderful.
just
She's
an
fantastic.
amazing individual and happens to be a mother of a Houston firefighter, understands the issues, carried a bill last session that we had 96 co-sponsors to require the city to stop this fight against its firefighters and to sit down and to go to binding arbitration. We were about, I think, 10, 12 bills out from the deadline from voting. We had the votes. This session, the dean
So it didn't pass last
it
time.
did not pass. Okay. And the dean of the Texas Senate, John Whitmire, who supported it last session, is carrying that bill right now.
On the Senate side.
On the Senate side.
Is Marianne on the House side
she's
too?
She's going to carry it on the House side. And the what we're getting at is this isn't a Republican or Democrat issue. We have bipartisan support because it's real. It's objective. It's not meant to put anybody else in a position other than to resolve a problem.
Does this go on in other fire departments in other cities here in Texas?
Absolutely. Not only does San Antonio firefighters have the same type issue, they have binding arbitration. The city of Austin has binding arbitration.
But have they exercised binding arbitration?
San Antonio has.
It has worked.
It has
The
absolutely
process worked.
And not only that, but to go to the point, every other major U.S. city has pay parity. In fact,
Is that right?
New York, L.A., Chicago, all have pay parity with the cops. Not to mention that in the 70s, when HPD couldn't get a pay raise because they had issues with the mayors at the time, we walked and marched on City Hall to make sure that they were taken care of. And we had pay parity from the 70s until the early 2000s when it was broken. So the reality is that this is not something that's,
This is not new.
this is not new. Arbitration absolutely works. It's supported by, again, the national labor, state labor, local labor. There's nobody that doesn't.
Who could be against it? I mean, what's on the other than, well, the mayor, right? But when you think about in the ledge, who could stand up and say, well, we don't want that?
No, nobody. I mean, we had a number, like I said, we had close to 100, and we weren't even done with people signing on to it. The support is you have to fix a problem. You can't ignore a problem. If you ignore a problem, it doesn't go away. But as we say that, the dean of the Texas Senate has said, I'm going to carry this. I'm going to make
Good
this
for him.
priority
I mean, come on.
legislation. And I'll tell you what, firefighters are appreciative that somebody is willing to stand up and to push this through. So it's here. It's Senate Bill 763. We're appreciative of it, and the firefighters deserve it. That's how they should have been treated all along.
So let's pretend it happens. Walk me through the sequence. Let's just pretend it becomes law. The governor signs it in, I don't know, the summer. Let's just pretend. So then what happens?
Well, that's a good question. Let's get there.
Then
Get
we'll
this
find-
thing
okay,
passed.
yeah.
Not that we're gonna.
I understand.
Probably for a longer, but
I'm just curious. I guess at some point, if it passes and it becomes law, comes the old-fashioned. All right, firefighters, you pick someone. City, you pick someone.
It's in the statute.
It happens.
It's already in the statute now. So the only thing that's different about this bill than what we're talking about is that the city can't say no.
Yeah.
The only thing that this bill does is say, instead of saying no, you don't want to go to arbitration, you have to go to arbitration because, again, it's either a third neutral party arbitration panel or it's a judge that decides. Either way, the end result is the same, but you're not wasting millions of taxpayer funds in firefighters without a contract since 2017.
Has City Hall come out against this bill? Or have they been taking a position? Or is this in many ways they're out? They can look like they're not for something, but just let it happen because you cannot just let this keep going.
No,
you cannot.
You're losing. You're going to have no firefighters
Yeah,
left.
you're going to have 1,000 for a 40. You need 4,000 people.
We needed. The city commissioned a study in 2015. It was actually done by Mayor Anise Parker prior to Mayor Turner. The city paid for it with your tax dollars, $500,000. That said, their own study, the City of Houston Fire Department, when they gave the report in 2016, that we were vastly understaffed and under-resourced. We needed 35 additional full-time ambulances, 5 new fire stations to respond to the citizens and the needs that they have, fire engines, hazmat units, ladder trucks, and the city took it and threw it in the trash.
Golly.
So this isn't, this isn't hyperbole and rhetoric. This is the truth, and the truth has to matter.
Wow. Well, you know what? You're not going to believe this. An hour has passed.
That felt like 2 minutes.
Didn't I tell you when you first arrived and you said, well, who else is me? I said, it's me and you for an hour. And you said, an hour?
Yeah.
But see, here's the thing. We're going to hear our song. We'll have a couple of minutes on social media. You can look into Houston. These are the legendary Clark sisters, and the song is called Victory. In many ways, I'm going to dedicate this victory to the Houston firefighters because at the end of the day, they've been out there, the everyday firefighter that doesn't know all that politics. All they know is they want to just help people. And they just see that there's more and more work. They don't have enough people. They're not, I don't know if the morale, you said it's got to be terrible. or low.
It's the worst it's ever been in
Yeah.
the Houston Fire Department history.
And they should be proud. And we as citizens, we want them to be proud, because if they're proud, they'll just do that much better for all of us. I really think, Marty, you have been great on this show. You've been great to frame the issues up very clearly, succinctly, and very objectively. You know, you've been very, very fair, and that's the Marty Lancton that I know. Let's hear this song. While we come to the very end here, Marty, I want to give you a minute here on radio, and then we'll have a minute or two on social media. What do you want to say to Houston? You can look right into the camera.
Houston, I'm going to tell you this. You have always supported the Houston firefighters and paramedics. We never take that trust for granted. We're going to continue to go out there, and we're going to continue to respond to you on your worst day, no matter what. And we want to thank you. Thank you for supporting us. We're going to get through this together. And with God in control, there's nothing that will ever stop us.
Amen. Amen. I love that. We declare victory over your life. Every now and then it's hard to see, but you got to decree and see victory. We declare victory. Don't be dismayed. God knows your need, but you got to decree and see victory. The Clark sisters are unbelievable because they've been famous gospel singers. Are you ready for this? Since like the 1960s. I was just going through their history, and there's 5 of them. What an incredible, incredible story. They have 20 albums. They continue to put out great, great music even to this day. So let's just enjoy. We'll stay on social media another minute or two. Sophie, I know you dropped. I know you're back on, and you may have dropped again. But Sophie, if you want to call us back, we'll get you on social media side, or please call again. I'm sorry for that dropping there on you earlier. I want to thank all our callers. A couple of guests I'm going to be having shortly. I'm going to have Stephen Kleinberg, Dr. Kleinberg, to talk about Houston and all of its growth and all of its activities and everything else. He is just a true gem of a person and a real Houston treasure. So we're on KWWJ, KYOK, KCOH, Aliento Radio, Sangeet, every Monday from 11 to 12. Call in, 832-570-8075. This is the People's Station. All right. We're now on social media there, Marty. Do we have Sophie back or no? All right. Well, Miss Sophie, if you're still on social media, we apologize for losing you there. And we've had just a splendid hour that felt like 5 minutes with labor union leader, Mr. Marty Lancton of the Houston firefighters. And we had some very good questions. We even had one of my colleagues whose husband's a firefighter, and we got a very interesting perspective from the spouse of a firefighter. Because, again, it takes a certain amount of love and support to say to your husband or your wife, all right, honey, I love you. Have a great day at the office. And what if it's the last day? I mean, what if it's the last day?
Well, that's kind of the point is one of the best quotes that I ever was told by one of our board members. He says, you're not paying firefighters and police officers for the job that they necessarily do every single day or every moment of every day. You're paying for them for the job that they're willing to do. Right. And that's to put their lives in line.
And it goes back to, you used a word, or I thought you did, about insurance. You said something like, you don't want to cash that insurance policy, or you made reference to that. I mean, the whole point about insurance is you don't want to use insurance. But when you need it and your house floods or your house burns, I mean, what's the first thing you do? You turn to your insurance. Okay. So if there's a stove fire or your son or daughter is I don't know the right word, flatlining there on the floor and they're having a heart attack, what do? You call in that insurance policy, and that's the Houston Fire Department. And they're there like that because they've already learned the model. Let's have fire stations throughout the community because 660 square miles is enormous.
It is.
And that doesn't even include traffic and lights and, all the problems we have all just with roads. At the end of the day, you got to be there because a minute or two is a difference between life and death.
Yep.
So Marty, real quick, where do you think this is finally going to go here? Are you optimistic through the courts? Are you optimistic through the legislature, or just in general, somewhere one of these pathways is going to reach a crescendo and we're going to have some sanity back and some finality that can give the firefighters the security that they need and deserve, the citizens some sort of closure, and we can just sort of get back to building the department.
Right. Well, you just said it best. Building it back up. This is a world-class fire department, and we don't need to be destroying it from within. We need to be building it up.
Amen.
And what I will tell you is that the answer is all of them. We are going to get finality in all of them because what is righteous and what is right and what the firefighters have done they didn't have to lie, they didn't have to cheat, they didn't have to steal in order to get the things that they're entitled to, that they have a right to, that we should be absolutely happy to be taking care of the men and women, because that's what the citizens assume is happening. And so on all fronts, I think that we're going to see the courts, I think we're going to see the legislature, and we're going to see that the focus is and should be on building back a world-class fire department.
Amen. Well, count me in on that one. And I congratulate the dean. I congratulate Marianne Pettis. I congratulate her for the first time around because, like anything else, if you can't get some sort of rational people at the table, well, you got to find a way to really move forward.
Right.
And this might be the way. So I want to just say, and I'm going to give you the last minute. You can think what you want to say there, Marty. I just want to tell everyone in Houston, thank you for listening. I know it was a holiday Monday, but we had a couple of calls. I thought it was great. I had a wonderful time this weekend. My mother-in-law came to town and my mother-in-law's sister. So that's my wife's aunt. And we had a great time at our church gala. My wife and I are very involved in that. We had the NAACP event. That was great. And so we had a lot of activity. My daughter, who runs my life, it's so strange to see her. She's 16, Marty. And now her friends, this is now like the third weekend in a row, they went out for lunch and they all drove their own cars. My daughter uses her brother's car. But at the end of the day, I'm just scared every moment because, like anything else, anything can happen. She got her license. She turned 16. And Marty, she turned 16, she got her license, and she had her first fender bender in 4 days.
Well, better to be a fender. Listen, get it out. What do they say about, people who ride motorcycles? Yep. They say two kinds of motorcycle riders, ones that have fallen and the ones that will fall. I would rather take a small fender bender and know that we don't want to do that again. Well,
I tell you, we don't want to do it again. I love her, and I told her, there's a picture from the NAACP gala, and I said, honey, don't worry because you're safe. And that's all that matters.
Yes.
So, Marty, one more time, I thank you for being here. Say what you want here to Houston. You're on social media now. Of course, this will be recorded and it'll be stored. It'll be out there for everyone to see. Last words into the camera, my friend.
Listen, I'm going to reiterate what we had said before. Firefighters know that the Houstonians support them, and it is not lost on the men and women. They're struggling. The morale is at an all-time low. And we have to take care of the men and women that are out there protecting us. And really, a message for the citizens is this: we're here for you, and we thank you for always being there for us. We're going to get through this together. We love you, Houston. We wouldn't be out there doing what we do if we didn't take an oath to not only protect you, but also be here for each other's, to be our brother's keeper. Thank you, Houston.
Amen. All right, let's tee up my commercial there, Mr. Producer, and we'll call it a wrap. See ya. Listen to. Go for it. This is Gilbert Andrew Garcia. Listen to my radio show, A Tip from Gilbert. Talk, inspiration, and prayer every Monday from 11 a.m. till noon on Houston's gospel leader, KWWJ. 1360 AM and streaming live on. All right, Houston, let me just say, as this plays, listen on we appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. 1140 AM and streaming live on KYOKradio.org. KCOH, 1230 AM, The Source. On San Geek Radio, 95.1 FM, 1460 AM. And Aliento Radio, 101.7 FM and 1540 AM. Call in at 832-570-8075 and follow me on social media. See you then.